on his computer. All right, we're recording. Today is Thursday, May 28th. This is a community outreach meeting for Backdrop CMS. We're going to keep it short and sweet because we're starting really late. Before we jump into the agenda, let's go around and quickly do introductions. So Greg, let's start with you.
Hi, so I'm Greg. I'm joining from Grace, and just to catch up with what's going on with Backdrop and help wherever I can.
Great. Luke, how about you?
I'm Luke McCormick. I'm in San Ramon, California, and I am a web product management consultant, so helping out how I can.
Great. I'm Jen Lampton. I'm coming from Berkeley, California. Sorry, technically Oakland, California, several blocks from Berkeley. I am excited about fixing some of our technical problems right now. So first up on our agenda to talk about outreach-wise is blog posts. I know we have a Backdrop 116 blog post in the work. I think Jeff said he's going to try and work on it tonight, so maybe that'll come soon. And Luke, you have an update for us on a blog post.
I did. I've written a brief recap of the 3 sessions that were related to Backdrop that were given at CMS Philly, and yeah, the draft is ready to go. I want to tune a few things, but that's basically ready to be published at any arbitrary point that you feel like sending something out.
That's great. So usually I like to schedule those for like Friday morning after Thursday when we all have time to work on stuff. So I don't know if you want to give it another review today and see if you think it's ready to schedule.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah, okay. No, tomorrow morning would be great. So I just have to the end of today to polish things and what have you. All right.
So I'll probably schedule it to go around 9, so that way people on the East Coast will still get it during their work day. I think that's what we did last time. We also have a section here for social media stuff. And usually what I like to do with that is pull little quotes from the most recent article and link back to it. So after we get the blog post scheduled, I'll probably go ahead and schedule a bunch of tweets with like little clips from it that link to the article that just promote the article on the blog. And we will hopefully be able to do the same thing for Backdrop 116, maybe with videos instead of photos. We'll see what's on there. And then next on the list is our newsletter. Sorry, my dog really wants to go see Nate, who's apparently on the other side of the door. So the newsletter, I've been working with MailJet to try and get access to our accounts. We had some problem with the emails that are sent from their automated system, so both their ticketing system and their like password reset system weren't getting through to Backdrop's email. And we have 2 accounts there, which I think might be a problem. We're only supposed to have one, but I set one up and then Nate set one up later, not realizing there was already one set up. So we really need help from them to merge those 2 accounts. And because we can't get any replies from their support system, that's not going very smoothly. So I sent off a couple more emails today. I tried to do another password reset today, but I'm still not getting email from them. So it doesn't give me a lot of confidence that we're going to get a reply from their automated system. But Nate had some ideas about how we might be able to change the way our email routing works so that it might be more likely to get messages from them. So I might try that today after our meeting because this is getting kind of ridiculous. And that's all we have on the to-do list from our last meeting. So I wanted to ask you guys what you thought was relevant for us to be working on right now, what we think we should be telling people about. Based on my experience in the last few weeks, it looks like people with really big Drupal 7 sites are starting to do proof of concepts for what they're going to do when they get off Drupal 7. And I think it might be good to start a bunch more general marketing communication stuff around the upgrade process for Backdrop. So I was thinking if we could pick some things, like Luke, you're really excited about views, just have like a 2-minute video on like, I'm going to upgrade my site. Look, all the views are here. Ta-da! And then have that be something that we put on social media. That might be really compelling to people. So if you have ideas about stuff like that, like what little tiny things we might be able to promote as part of an upgrade, I would love to work on that content. I also have been looking at conversions. So like if you did something one way in Drupal 7 and we want you to do it a different way in Backdrop, trying to make that conversion process more automated and less time consuming. I was looking at an issue in the forum about Breakpoints module for Drupal 7, which was something that used to let you set like where you wanted your responsive theme to break, but it also ends up being a required module for other projects. So for us, we don't need the theme stuff to happen because we have layouts doing that instead. But if you want, for example, your image styles to change using like the source set attribute on images, using the same breakpoints as core, we could do that using the image style, what's called picture module for Drupal 7 that handles that. But we have to kind of refactor it a little bit to not depend on breakpoints. Or we could just have the people who are using breakpoints and picture in Drupal 7 switch to a different project like image source set or source set image, or there's another project that's similar. But trying to get that conversion process to be easier, I think, is important. And there's going to be a whole bunch of little tiny things like that where it's like, it's almost the same, but it's different enough that it's a headache. And I would like to make all those little headaches go away. So I've got a couple of my own big upgrades coming up that include some of these headaches. So I'm motivated to figure out how to make that conversion process either easier, whether it needs to be like a suite of little plugins for coder upgrade or something. So that's kind of what I'm thinking about.
It doesn't have to be automated. We can have, so long as there's documentation about it as well, at least.
Yeah, I like the idea of having those issues identified and contained. I think they're only a problem if they're surprises. So so to the extent that we can have like a database, like, you know, here's things to worry about, and like, you know, if like column A is like, this is your current situation. And so, for example, if you're using, you know, if you're using this or that module, you need to worry about this. If you're not using this or that module, like, don't bother reading this because it doesn't apply to you.
Yeah.
And I think you can make like a big scary list seem, and, you know, like, truthfully be not that much of an issue if you just, you know, if it comes in the process of having, here's like a huge list of things that you don't have to worry about. Like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about that. You know, like, scan this list for things that actually apply to you. And
speaking about that,
deal with this.
Speaking about that, Peter B.W. Panda has posted an article on his website about the process that he's going through, and that was an extensive list of things. And I read through it, and there's certain things that I would like Backdrop to do without them having to be a manual process, like taking backups or having to copy a database somewhere. We could have Backdrop, you know, pointed to that database or pointed to the other site, and with some credentials import things automatically without, you know, getting the people to get into SFTP and transferring files here and there. So the more that we can automate, the better. But yeah, maybe unknowingly, Peter sort of like was helping us towards that direction, because what he created is basically a list. It's not the list, it's not the process that everyone would take. It was his workflow, but still, most of the things apply to people. So this brought up a discussion. We already have a ticket where we were considering including something like a backup and migrate in core that would help people, you know, back up their databases, not only during migrations, but also during database updates. Because currently all we do is we tell them, stop, we advise you to back up your database. It would be perfect if we said, instead of saying stop, go and back up your database and go back again, saying, you know what, we've already backed up your database, or your database will be backed up as a step of this whole thing that you're trying to do. So you're safe.
Yeah. I mean, is there any compelling reason not to do that? Like what are the ways one can back up a database? You can have, you know, like command line MySQL and do things with PHP MyAdmin and do things with Drush, but those are like expert tools where you're very aware of how. So like if you move it aside to like what's the consumer facing side?
Exactly.
So there are some technical challenges to doing it. I don't think there is like a good reason not to, if we can address the technical challenges. One of them is that we need to have a safe place to put potentially sensitive data. And by default, the only place that we can write content is into the files directory, and that's not a safe place to put a database dump. So I think like if you're using backup and migrate, there's a configuration setting that's like, where should we store your databases? And the assumption is that it goes outside of your doc root so that nobody could get to it maliciously. And I think that we would need to have something like that where we either test to see if we can write outside the doc root, and if so, create a safe place where we can put stuff, which we could do on shared hosting, but you maybe can't do most other places. And then
the private directory.
Or what?
The private directory.
Right. Same thing, right? Where you ask people, where do we put private files? So we could have, in that same interface, we could have, you know, if you haven't defined private files, we're not going to be able to do database backups or something like that. So yeah, it would be
is there no mechanism to encrypt the databases? It seems like
at the password.
You can run it with the password through crypt and you're good to go.
Yeah, we don't have any mechanism like that currently built into any of the tools that we would use to do it. That doesn't mean there's any reason in any way. That doesn't mean we can't do it. I think we are working on a couple of interesting things that might be able to use that. So like we have all the stuff Nate's been working on about package signing. Involves a library that handles this sort of stuff. And if we have that in core, we would have that tool at our disposal to use for this. So I think we would just need to be like, okay, well, you know, if we're going to put it somewhere private, we don't have to worry about it. And that might be step one. Ask people, where do I put it? Put it there. Step two would be like, don't bother asking if they haven't defined it, encrypt it and put it somewhere else and use the tools that are provided. But I think we're a little farther from that because none of those are set up currently.
Okay. I mean, you know me, I shy away from any development thing that strikes me as at all hard, but this one I was like, wait, I can do that. You know, just run it through an encryption thing. But maybe it's not as easy as it sounds like to me.
It doesn't exist right now in Backdrop, so we'd have to add it.
Oh, it doesn't have to be encrypted. Just a password protected zip file, right?
Yeah.
Just a very. I know that.
Then that requires that like zip exists on the server where we're putting it. I mean, it probably does, but we just have to add a test for that. And then we would need like, where do you save the password so that Backdrop can unzip it if they need to restore from database? Like, this is not a hard problem. Yeah. It's just one that hasn't been solved.
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, the encryption thing isn't the password wouldn't be stored. You'd have to remember the password to get it back. Which for this kind of thing, I mean, particularly for something, I mean, the place people use passwords is when you're trying to encrypt something you encrypted a decade ago, and you're like, oh, I don't know what I was using then. But you know, if you're backing up your database to do an upgrade, and it crashes, you remember the password you put in 30 minutes ago.
Well, so in a perfect world, I would like, if we're going to give people a button that's like, upgrade my site, and it doesn't work, I want them to have a button that will put their site back.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so if that means that if we're taking the database and locking it up, we also need the ability to unlock it. And maybe that means like present them a form. I don't know, but
where we demand the password.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
But that would also assume that form is able to run after a mongled database upgrade. So there.
Yeah. No, well, I think the hard part is actually that is how to how do you restore a system that you just borked, right?
Yeah.
And I think it has to be some kind of standalone restore, or some kind of like script that you run.
Yeah.
That's
And
completely independent
we do
and just
have,
only does that one thing.
there's a collection of scripts in core. We have a scripts directory where we put that stuff. So I think it's not unreasonable to be like, hey, worst case scenario, here's a script, here's some documentation on how you can run it. But I think we do need to sort of think through the best case scenario carefully too, and figure out what the solution is. Luke, if you want to work on this, I think this sounds really great, and I would love to have an issue. At the very least, an issue that describes the desire and the intended approach.
Ooh, oh, that you mean write requirements for it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's what I theoretically do. Yeah, sure, I'll do that.
Yeah, do that, and then if you want to work on it, that's great. But if not, at least we have it documented as to.
No. I'll you know what? It sounds like, I mean, not necessarily an initiative, but something, you know, proposal. So sure.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Anything else super relevant going on right now?
So the guys over at Zulip were discussing a few places where Backdrop is being mentioned as an alternative, and there's an alternative too. There's a link there, and there were 3 comments there. I replied as well. So the more reviews that we get, the better visibility, I guess. So
we're in serious need of SEO. You know, we're 100th on the list of alternatives to Drupal. we can do better than that.
Who's actually following up on the Google Ads thing? Do we have a ticket? I think there was a ticket in b.org. Sorry, in the batchofcms.org GitHub.
For the ads.
Yes, the grant. Yeah.
Well, that's in process. That wasn't on the recording. We were talking about it before, but we're checking. Hey, could you hear us, Jen, while you were helping Dougie?
Yeah.
You know, it's been brought up here on the recorded channel that there's interest in the Google Ads grant thing. So what statement do we want to make at this point on that, do you think?
Just that we're legally looking into it to see if our nonprofit sponsor is able to vouch for us in a way that we would qualify for that grant. So we're working on it.
Yeah.
Okay. So the ticket there is 542 in the batchofcms.org.
Nice. 54. What was that number again? I'm writing it down.
5442. I'll provide a link to it.
How many monitors do you have?
Oh, 3.
You're looking around.
Yes, 3 here, and it's like 4 at work. In the office.
All right.
All right. Well, we are over time. So I would like to wrap this meeting, and then we can get back to the other one, and we'll figure out how to post them on YouTube after that meeting's over. Any final thoughts?
Go back up.
Yay. Okay. All right. See you guys in a minute.
See you.